Hey, hi, how's it going? We're not wasting our money this year. We're gonna do some plant shopping today, and I'm gonna show you some of the things that I'm always keeping in the back of my mind when I'm shopping at big box stores to make sure I get good, healthy, happy plants and I don't waste my money. I don't like to waste money, and I spend a lot of money on my plants. So these are all of the things that I'm looking out for. Before we get into that, we're gonna go over a few things. First thing we're gonna go over is you need to know your growing zone. So when you're plant shopping at some places like Home Depot and Lowe's, they like to just bring a selection of things, and they don't always know exactly what grows in your growing zone. So knowing your growing zone, making sure that you're looking up some of the plants that you're looking at, that is the best thing to do. Always look at the growing zone when picking up a plant. A very quick Google search, all you type in is what is my growing zone and then your zip code, and it'll tell you what your growing zone is. And then when you're out shopping around, you can look at the labels of the plants and you can figure out if it grows appropriately in your growing zone. Right here where it says cold hardiness down to -10 to -20, non-hardy zones 1 through 4. So everybody that is the zone 5 and above, you're good to grow this plant. The next thing that we're gonna be looking at is annual versus perennial, and those are two pretty important things to know. When I first started out gardening, I didn't understand the difference between annual versus perennial. I thought I bought a plant, put it in the ground, why did it only last one season? That's because I was buying annuals. So annual, think of the annual ball. You've got to plan your annual ball every single year, right? Perennial means permanent. It's permanent in your garden for the lifespan of that plant. Some perennials only last a couple years, some last many, many years. So there is a difference between annual and perennial, and that is a very important thing to know. And that's how I think of it. The annual ball, you have to plan every single year. The perennials, they're permanent in the garden. And any appropriate plant tag will tell you if it's an annual versus a perennial. This one right here says it's an annual. And this one right here says it's a perennial. The next thing to make sure that you're thinking about is the area that you want plants to go. You need to know if you're looking at full sun, part sun, shaded area. Plants are gonna grow best in the appropriate condition. So things like lavender, like all of this behind me, is gonna grow best in full sun. It wants as much sun as it can possibly get. And then there's other plants, like some begonias, they want a lot of shade. So you need to think about when you're looking at the plant tag, if it is a full sun, a part sun, a full shade plant, and then you need to look into your garden to see where that plant would do best in your garden. So you can see like this jasmine right here, it says full sun, meaning that it needs at least 6 hours of direct sunlight on it. So you want this thing planted basically like in the middle of a parking lot, full sun, minimum 6 hours, and that's how you're gonna get this plant to be the happiest. And then there are some things that are going to lie to you. So this is where I think Google is going to be your best friend when plant shopping. I pull my phone out and I Google almost everything just to double check the plant tags. So sometimes at big box stores, they just kind of like throw a generic label on there. So these right here are strawberries and they do say partial sun. If you've grown strawberries, you know that they need full sun. So that's not gonna be the best. So if somebody's growing it in an area where it's only gonna get 6 hours of, let's say, morning sun, which this says 3 hours of sun, full sun to partial shade, meaning 3+ hours of sun. If these strawberries only got 3 hours of sun, you're really not gonna get the best yield from them. So this is where Google needs to become your best friend, and you can't just rely on just the plant tags. I Google pretty much everything that I throw into my shopping cart. Best thing to do, just Google it. When you're looking for some plants, you don't want to look for the ones that have the most blooms on them. You want to look for the ones that have the most blooms to come on them. So I like to get into the plant and I like to actually look down into it and see how many blooms I can see that are coming. So this one has 3 blooms on it, which isn't bad, but there are some other ones that I can see that there are lots more blooms to come on this one. So this one right here, I can count at least 5 blooms coming on this one. So I'm only gonna get 1 bloom immediately, but I'm gonna get more blooms in the longevity of this quicker. These blooms are maybe just opening, but I'm only gonna get maybe a couple days out of these before they completely drop and they're not good. So I would pass on one that looks like this, even though it's really tempting to grab one that's fully bloomed out and not grab this one right here. But this one right here, you can see this bloom is just gonna open up in the next day or two. Same with all of these. So you're gonna get the longest life out of it if it's got maybe one that's fully open so you can enjoy it immediately, but lots more to come. This is what I would grab versus one like this. Don't be afraid to look at the roots of your plants. So if you're looking at something, you can take it out. I like to give it a little squeeze. If it's something like this that I think probably hasn't been rooted up too long, I'm gonna pull it out. I'm gonna look at the roots. The roots look really good. They're nice and healthy. They're not dry, they're not dead, they're not mushy. I like to just quickly pull things out, things that are a little bit more expensive. This is a $15 plant. I probably would risk it on this one, but things that are gonna be a little bit more pricey, or my annuals, I do like to look at them because sometimes annuals can get rotted roots. So pull it out. If you were at a big box store, I just pull them out and I just quickly look at them. Rule of thumb, if I break it, I will buy it. And I think that should be standard. I do not do this at local or independent garden centers unless I ask permission first. But I do like to look at the roots of some of my plants, especially if it's an investment piece. I wanna make sure that the roots aren't dying, and also on the annuals, because annuals can add up pretty quickly. Look at the roots of your plants. It'll make sure that you're getting a really healthy one. Whatever you do, do not skip the clearance rack. This is a clearance plant. And so Lowe's has a sheet where everything is priced, but this still looks absolutely amazing. And there is so many different selections in the clearance section right now. You don't want orange? That's fine. They've got the blues and the whites. Now this is really big. This would benefit from a little bit of a cutback, and then it'll reflush for me. So I like to shop the clearance racks. You can always find amazing things. They've got candy tufts right here. They're a little bloomed out, but they will set new blooms. These right here are just under $10, and with the clearance, it makes it super affordable. So if you need to buy a huge abundance of plants, I do like to shop the clearance racks because you can find a really good selection of things. They even have things like primroses. This is a whole bunch of primrose in here. 20 bucks for a whole bunch of them. Still not a bad deal. I don't think it's the greatest deal if it's not on clearance, but on clearance, this would be 50% off. So this would be $10 for all of these right here, which hard to beat that. What I do like to do, same thing with the clearance plants, is I like to check the roots on my plants. That's how I can make sure that what I'm coming home with is a really good plant, because sometimes you get some things that have some not great roots. They've got these primrose here. These are $5 a piece. They're on the clearance rack, but the roots on them look absolutely stunning. So it's not the most beautiful plant. There is some burn on it. Maybe it just missed a little bit of watering, but there's still moisture in here. It's still cool to the touch, and this will rebound. Cut off the ugly blooms, cut off the ugly leaves. This thing will rebound beautifully for me. This one right here, it looks very rough on the top, but we're gonna check the roots. I can already see them coming out the bottom there. They look really good. This one's probably a little bit root bound. It's actually very root bound, but this plant with a little bit of teasing, some fertilizer, and going in the ground, it would be totally fine. I can see the crown of the plant. The crown of the plant isn't mushy or anything like that, so this would be a really good one to grab, and I can see lots of new growth coming from this. It just needs a little bit of love. So if you've got the time and you want to save some money, check the clearance racks because they have a huge selection. My favorite clearance racks are the ones at Lowe's. The next one is that we're going to look for plants that have a multiple of one plant in them. So this right here is $10 for all of these succulents. You can go up to the front and you can buy succulents individually for about $3 to $4 a piece. But right here, I can take this. This is $10, and I'm going to get 7 succulents for $9 out of this. So if you're looking to do that, so I would always look for plants that have a multiple of them, then you can divide them really easily. Same thing with this succulent. This right here is $10, and there are so many plants in here. I could divide this and easily get 7 or 8 plants out of this single one plant. Rather than paying an arm and a leg for individual plants, I like to come over to the succulents if I'm doing a succulent arrangement, and I will buy them big, and then I can divide them up. Speaking of succulents, if you're going to buy some, avoid the ones that have these little things glued on the top of them. That's not real. It's not a real flower. It's just a hot glued piece of plastic on there. It'll be there forever because it's a piece of plastic, but it's not real. So all of these ones that look really pretty that have these faux blooms on them, it's not a real bloom. That red one, not real. These are real. These will bloom. These are the real blooms right here all along. This is one that's just glued to the top. It's actually just gonna hinder the plant. So anytime I see anything glued to a plant, I try to avoid it entirely because it's not gonna help with the health of the plant. So if your cactus have these little flowers on here, they're not real. These are fake little pieces of plastic. I also try to avoid any plants that have gravel glued to the base of them. That's really bad for your plant. So steer clear of anything that's got gravel glued to the base. I'm not finding any here, which makes me really happy. It looks like they're steering clear of them this year, but it would be nice if they steer clear of these also, because a lot of people think that these blooms are real. They're not. They're just a piece of plastic. So get the ones that just have just real blooms in them. And they will kind of trick you with these ones. So these ones have the faux flower glued on top of them. This is very much real. So this is a real one. This is 2 different cactus that are grafted together. So this is one down here, and this is another one here. They cut the bottom off of this, the top off of this, and they graft them together. This is very much a real plant. This is a real plant down here, but this is faux. This is plastic. The next one, we're inside for just a minute, but this one is pretty important. Milo's does a really, really good job about this. They sell a lot of plants that are coming with their own containers. What you want to do is you want to make sure that it's not just sitting in water. This one is sitting in quite a bit of water. I can't even show you how much water is in here, but you can see how much it's just pouring out. So the longevity of this plant isn't going to be very long. It's not going to be a healthy plant if it's just been sitting in water. Who knows how long it's been sitting in water. This is probably one that I wouldn't even check the roots on, because I would be fearful that they are going to be rotten. So I would steer clear of any of them that are just sitting in water. But my Lowe's has started to do a really good job with this. And so what they're doing is they're selling plants with containers that have a lift up in them. And so these pots are sitting not in water, but if there is extra water in here, which this one has a little bit of water, it can wick it up with the string. Or what my Lowe's is doing is they are selling plants that have a pot inside with a pot with drainage holes drilled into them, so they can't just sit in water. I think that they probably were losing a lot of plants due to rot, and so it looks like they're trying to get away from that. But just be mindful when you're picking up a plant that you're not picking up one that has just been sitting in water, because those roots can rot really, really fast, especially if it's getting watered every single day. So just be mindful of that when you're looking at plants. I do notice that some of their outdoor plants also were doing that over the last couple years, but I didn't find any this time, so that makes me really happy. Just be mindful when you're looking at plants that come in their own little pots that they're not just sitting in water, and this one is not. It's a good rule of thumb to pick up a bag of fertilizer while you're here, and you'll probably get a little overwhelmed because there's going to be a million options for fertilizer and a million different types of fertilizer that are all telling you that they all do different things. I like to fertilize my plants, especially annuals. I think that they need it. They produce a lot of plant, a lot of flowers, a lot of growth in this first year. It's one and only year that it's going to live, and we need to feed them. And so giving them a really good, healthy food right at the beginning and then halfway through the season is important. Pick up a bag of fertilizer. My rule of thumb is if you get a little overwhelmed by it, just go with an all-purpose fertilizer. Really anything, just all-purpose, and you should be good to go. The one that I typically reach for is this one right here called Plant Tone. You can pretty much just use it on everything. It's pretty affordable. It's about $15 right there, or you can get a big bag for $26. I usually grab myself one of these big bags, and it lasts me, who's a crazy person, about half the season, because I put in a lot of plants in my garden every single year. So you can start out with one of these. Give them just a little handful of it. If it's organic, you really don't have to worry too much about burning it. If it's synthetic, you might burn your plants. So I try to stick with something organic. Plant Tone is the one that I can find the most readily, and it's just one that I've been using in my garden for years now. So this is the one that I reach for. And I think that just going in with a little bit of fertilizer is going to help you get the best bang for your plants. So if you're just starting out, don't worry about any of these other ones. Just get a all-purpose fertilizer, something like this, something like this. This is an all-purpose plant food, and it works on pretty much everything. This is something that happened to me recently, and this is one big tip. If anything, look for pests on your plants. Don't be afraid to actually get in and look in the plant for pests. I recently was going to buy a big old evergreen, actually from here, and I was looking at it, and we got it on the cart, and then I started to do where I actually look into the plant, and I saw that it was covered in aphids. And so had I spent all that money on it to bring it home, have it be covered in aphids, I would have been kicking myself. So I like to really get in there, and I like to look at the plant. I'm going to look at the underside of the leaves. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to move the branches of it. I'm going to really look at it. If I'm spending all this money on these plants, I want them to come home and be healthy. They're already going to have a little bit of shock with transplanting and being from one environment into the next. So bring them home pest-free by really looking. Don't be afraid to get in there and search inside the plant. Nobody's going to yell at you if you look in the plant for pest. If you do find pest in the plant, just let them know. Let them know, like, hey, just so you guys know, this plant does have bugs. Sometimes they'll take care of it. Sometimes they'll remove the plant from the floor. Sometimes they will go spray something. Sometimes they'll do whatever they can to take care of the pest on their end, but then it's off your hands and you don't have to worry about bugs coming home into your garden. This dwarf Alberta spruce looks pretty good, and so what I would do is I just like to just a quick little once over, just really look in there. You don't have to spend 10 years looking at it. Try to look at the stem a little bit, the trunk. Nothing. This is a good one. This one's ready to come home, and this one looks really beautiful. I've only found pests on plants a few times on a plant that I've been interested in buying, and it's never been that big of a deal. I just let them know, I don't take the plant home, and I don't get that plant. And then that kind of sucks, but that way I didn't actually bring home anything into my garden and introduce another pest. I already deal with enough pests in my garden. I don't need to bring home a new one. One of my favorite annuals to grow are petunias. You're gonna get the best bang for your buck with petunias. They do need fertilizer, a lot of fertilizer, so that's where picking up that bag of fertilizer is gonna come in handy. These ones right here are called Super Petunia Vista Bubblegum. One of my favorites. They're a classic and they get so big. You need one of these plants to take up a huge amount of space. We grew them in our front yard a couple years ago. I think I only needed like 5 plants to fill up our entire front yard. It was amazing. These are $7.98 a piece, and the way that these are going to perform for you is going to blow your mind. Super Petunia Vista bubblegum is such a staple. Petunias for me are a staple in my garden. The Vista series from Proven Winners is hands down amazing. So if you're wanting the best bang for your buck, try to find the white cans from Proven Winners, and any of the series that say Vista are going to perform the best for you. These ones right here called Vista bubblegum are going to perform the best out of any petunia out there on the market, is my opinion. There are a lot of different types of petunias out there. These ones cost $3 per petunia. You're getting a smaller plant to start off with. They will perform very well, but this is just your basic petunia. This is just one that's not going to blow your mind for it. It's still going to fill out a good section of your garden, but I think I would rather spend the $7 and get one of those Vista series from Proven Winners that I know is going to just take off in the garden. If this is all you can find, these petunias will still do an amazing job. So I still love the pink. I love the little collar in the throat of it. $3 a piece. You're gonna get an amazing show for $3 a piece. It's hard to beat that. I try to stick with the ones that I know that are tried and true. I've grown these ones before. They do well. They do fine in the garden. But if you want that big show, spend a little bit more money, get the Proven Winners variety. This here is Creeping Jenny. This is another one of my favorite annuals. It is beautiful in containers and pots. It trails down. It can be a little bit of a bully in the garden, so you don't want to put this one inside the landscape. This is one that does really well in containers, in pots, trailing down. I've seen some people who use this one in a pot and they hang it up really high and it trails down. One of these goes a really long way. They do really great. They always have this beautiful chartreuse green color to them. Beautiful, beautiful plant. And when you get a whole entire container that looks like this and they're all just trailing down, it's so stunning. These ones here are only $6 a piece. And I usually grab a couple each year because they're just so pretty in containers. Another one of my favorite annuals is verbena. I don't know the variety of this one, unfortunately. It's just in a mixed container. It's got some petunias in here also, and it doesn't tell me what this recipe is, unfortunately. But verbena is a great performer in my garden. It's a tender annual for me, meaning that it comes back for me some years. So I've got a couple in my garden that winter over. But this one is beautiful. It's just a gorgeous plant. I love that it's one giant flower, but it's actually a whole bunch of little tiny flowers. Pollinators love this one. Hummingbirds love this one. We've got hummingbirds on ours. Every time it starts blooming, ours have started blooming in our garden, the ones that wintered over. Verbena, if you can get your hands on them, grab them. They're a great performer in the garden. I would pass on this one because this is just a mix of verbena. It looks like verbena, some calibrachoa, and some petunias in here. And this is 20 bucks, which actually probably isn't the worst deal out there, but I do like to find them individually. So I would be on the hunt for verbena that I can just grab individual ones, and I can grab the specific colors that I want, which I actually do kind of want this color. We're gonna touch on some perennials really quick, some really good perennials. This is dianthus right here. Beautiful. Perennial means that it is going to die back to the ground and come back fresh for you every single year. This is a perennial. They're typically more expensive than annuals. So this is a $14 perennial. This is a beautiful dianthus. I'm trying to get more into dianthus this year, and so I'm trying to appreciate them. I love the variegation on this. And so this is a plant that you buy once and you have for many, many years. So $14 I think is a good deal for a perennial. There's also, right next to it, some Coreopsis. Coreopsis is another perennial. These ones are $13 a piece, and Coreopsis is a really good perennial, and they do really well. Very hardy. For me, gophers do tend to eat the roots on them, so I tend to steer away from them, but I do think that they are really pretty. I wish that they did better in my garden because I do enjoy the foliar growth on these. I think it's just a very nice soft green, and then they start blooming, and you get all of these blooms from it, and I don't know how you can be mad at something that looks good when it's green and gives you lots of blooms. So Coreopsis is a perennial, meaning that it's going to die back to the ground in the wintertime, and then the next year it's going to come back fresh growth. It's going to be big, it's going to be beautiful, and they just kind of tend to get bigger and bigger every single year until they reach their mature size. Rule of thumb with perennials is sleep, creep, leap. First year they sleep, it's going to stay about the size. Second year it's going to get a little bit bigger. You're going to notice that it's bigger. Third year, it's going to leap. It's going to get huge, and it gets kind of to its full size by year 3 usually for most perennials. And 13 bucks, not a bad price for perennials. A perennial that is a workhorse in the garden is scabiosa. I totally recommend this plant. This is one that is just going to work and work and work in the garden. The pollinators love it, butterflies, hummingbirds, and you can buy this one with as many blooms on it as you want. It's just going to continue to produce blooms for you throughout the entire growing season. These ones are about $7. It is a perennial. You can divide them when they get a little bit more mature. I tend to buy them when they're small like this because they grow quite quickly. Bees love them, and the blooms on them are amazing. There is a difference. There is perennial and annual scabiosa. The ones you're gonna find in the store are usually the perennial scabiosa, and most common you're gonna find these like purple electric blue ones, but there's also a pink one. The pink one is my favorite, but I do love scabiosa, and I have a ton of them in my garden. I grow the annual every year from seed, and the perennials I tend to pick up quite a few each year. The pink ones are my favorite though. Definitely grab a few of those if you can find them. The last perennial that I want to show you are these calla lilies. Calla lilies I think are so pretty. My husband, not the biggest fan of them, but I love them. I think that they're really pretty. I'm not a big fan of this yellow color, but I am a big fan of it in a really big drift like this. These guys will die back all the way down to the ground. They have a bulb that's underground actually, and that bulb will go ahead and split into a whole bunch of different bulbs, and this clump is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually you can divide them. Perennials are really cool like that because over the winter time or before they start to break dormancy or in the fall time, you can come in, take a shovel, split them in half, divide them, and then you've got a whole bunch of different plants. Calla lilies have a like bulb underneath them, so you don't want to take a shovel and split them, but you do want to divide the bulbs, and then you'll have a whole bunch of plants, and then you could have calla lilies, you could have a big huge drift starting from just one single plant for $12.98. I love perennials. You need to have a mix of perennials and annuals in your garden to get a really good long-lasting show. Annuals are going to be ones that bloom for the entire growing season, from when you get them in the ground to when a frost takes them. Perennials typically have a bloom cycle, meaning that you're going to get a show of blooms either in the beginning, the middle, or the end of the season. Some of them bloom throughout, which is really nice, but for the most part, a perennial is going to just give you a really good show of blooms, and they're really great because they do fill out the holes in the garden, and you buy them once and you've got them forever. We've touched on annuals and perennials. Now we're going to touch on some shrubs really quick. So shrubs typically are usually sometimes evergreen, or the foliar growth falls off and then you still have some type of structure in the garden with its branching. So this right here is a bay. I have one of these in my garden. This is a bay tree, and this is called Little Ragu Sweet Bay. This one here retails for $57, and it's actually quite large. And these are bay leaves, so you can use this one, which is nice. It's an edible, but this is a shrub, meaning that it's not going to die back into your garden. It's always going to be there. This one is an evergreen where I live. It is a higher zone only plant. This one is growing zones 8 through 11. It's going to get about 8 feet tall and wide. So this will always be evergreen in my garden. Some shrubs will lose their foliar growth, and then you'll just have some sticks in your garden. But for the most part, a shrub is going to bring you interest kind of year round, whether it's the structure of the branching or the foliar growth or whatever it might be. But you definitely want to have a couple shrubs in your garden. And what I mean when some of them are going to lose their leaves, this is what I mean right here. So this is a purple smoke bush, and it's lost all of its leaves. It will rebound, but in the wintertime, you're just gonna have some sticks. And so it brings some structural interest into your garden during the winter months. And just to quickly touch, there's also evergreens, which are things like pine trees or spruces and things like that. So this is what's going to remain evergreen. It's going to be green year-round in your garden, meaning that while your shrubs have lost some of their foliar growth and your perennials have died back and your annuals are long gone, this is going to be that beautiful permanent structure in your garden. This right here is a Black Hill spruce. It's going to get about 15 feet wide and 25 feet tall. Usually evergreens can get quite large, but you can find some that are dwarf, and I do tend to add the dwarf ones. So for a, this is probably a dwarf style evergreen, only getting 15 feet wide. So there are some evergreens that are much smaller than that. There's a couple that only get a couple feet wide and lots of feet tall, but you can get them in any size, but for the most part, they do get quite large. So evergreens are a really good one to add into the garden. Every garden is going to need a few evergreens, so that way you have that interest in the wintertime. It's very, very important. The last thing we're going to touch on is, when do you buy the little plant or the big plant? These are both viburnums. You can see there's a very clear size difference in these. This one is $13. This one is $36. I would go for the big one on these. Viburnums typically aren't a very fast growing plant, and so you're better off spending a little bit more money and getting something that has some really good size to it immediately, rather than buying this one that's $13 and having to baby it for a couple years until you get to something like this. You're shaving off some years buying the bigger plant on this. That's not always the case. But with something that is slow growing, this is when Google's going to become your friend. If you're not sure how fast something grows, and if you see a small plant and a big plant, I would Google it. Google how fast do viburnums grow. It's gonna tell you that they don't grow incredibly fast, and that's when you're gonna wanna spend the $36 and have some instant impact into your garden, rather than planting this one little gallon that you're just gonna have to baby over the next few years. You either spend money or you spend time. Those are the rules in gardening. So going with the bigger plant, this is going to buy you some time. You're spending dollars to get time out of your plants, or you spend less dollars and you spend time. It's up to you. This is an instance of when I would spend the dollars. This is a really good show of when to buy the smaller one. These are both pink jasmine. One of these is $15. One of these is $36. There is very clearly a size difference in these, and that's okay. They're supposed to be. One is much older than the other one. Here's the deal. The small one is gonna grow incredibly fast. So this is when I would buy the small one. You're gonna save yourself some money. This will grow fast. This will be up to this size this growing season, if not next, easy. You're getting 1 year of time out of this one. So this is an instant of buy the smaller one, unless for some reason you really need the bigger one. I would buy the smaller one in this case though. So things that are very fast growing, like vines. This is a vine. It's gonna grow incredibly fast. Just Google how fast the plant grows if they have the smaller one and a bigger one. If it's fast growing like these jasmine are, buy the smaller one. That is all that I have time to show you today. So that is shopping like a pro at big box stores so you don't lose out on money. Big tips. Take those tips, go to anywhere that you're gonna be doing your plant shopping this springtime. I do a lot of plant shopping at Lowe's, I do a lot of plant shopping at Home Depot, and I do a lot of plant shopping at local independent garden centers, and that is how you don't lose a whole bunch of money this year when you're gonna be growing your garden. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like and that subscribe button. We'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys.